guys, welcome back to my channel. For you guys who are new here, my name is Leah and this is True Crime and Beauty, where I cover a true crime case that I've just been kind of interested in, and then I talk about it while I put it on some makeup. If you guys enjoy any of those two things, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I have been on a roll with these American Horror Stories. The people behind the characters, and I don't mean the actors, I mean the people that the actors portrayed. I had been recently covering American Horror Story Hotel, but I decided that I was going to skip around a little bit instead of just going in progression of each character from that particular season, because some of the killers, murderers, people like that are portrayed in that one are also portrayed in other ones. What I decided to do was just kind of skip around, and then once we're finished up with that, I'll move on to other ones. I did throw in the Picton Pig Farm a couple episodes ago. My friend that lives in Canada actually had said that I should do that one. But today, we're going to cover Marie Delphine LaLaurie. Now, I will bounce between calling her Marie and Delphine, but I'll try to stick to Delphine. She was played by Kathy Bates, American Horror Story Coven. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this story. First, I need to start off with a warning. This is going to contain graphic things that you may not want to hear. If it's going to cover mutilation, torture, some experimentation, and this is all on slaves. If any of these are triggers for you, I'll go ahead and catch you in the next video, because remember, you got to take care of yourself, your mental health, all of that first. This is a video. It's meant for entertainment purposes. It is a factual, as factual as I can get it, but it is not meant to harm or disrespect anyone. So remember to please take care of yourself first, and you can always dive into another one another day. So let's get started. Per usual, I will try to remember to tell you everything that I'm using on my face as we go through the storyline. Again, if you decide that you prefer me just labeling it down below or listing it in the description, go ahead and leave a really nice comment about how you'd like me to do that instead of talking about it during the video. But for today, we're going to use some Anastasia Beverly Hills brows. We're going to use the dip brow in ebony, and we're going to use the Brow Freeze styling brow wax. Miss Marie Delphine McCarthy was born March 19th, 1787 to prominent New Orleans parents. She was said to be a lovely child, and that she just kind of lived a nice, comfortable lifestyle without having to worry about much of anything. Her parents were prominent in the society that they lived in, and it was the Creole society. There isn't an overabundance of information about her childhood. It's just kind of assumed that she lived like a really nice childhood, and because her parents were well-to-do in society around there, and she just lived very comfortably. But as she grew older, and I don't mean too much older, because in the 1800, like the turning of 1800, at the young age of 13, she married her first husband, whose name was Don Ramon, and he ended up taking her over to Spain. in 1884. But ultimately, I mean, it really probably doesn't surprise you that the marriage just didn't work out. And to prime our eyes, we're going to use some Too Faced Shadow Insurance, one of my favorites. We're just going to go ahead and put this on our eyes. Also, as you noticed, if you remember from previous makeup videos, I found my lobster mirror. I thought I'd lost it. So after Delphine's marriage to Don Ramon did not work out, in 1808, at the age of roughly 17, she ended up marrying Jean Blanc, and he was like the big time bachelor guy that, you know, women would be chasing because he was well to do and he was, you know, good old bachelor and somebody, you know, like nowadays he'd be like on The Bachelor, to, if you get the drift of how, you know, prominent he was. He was a lawyer. He was a merchant. He was also a banker. I mean, this guy had his hands in everything. I mean, he even bought a house for them that was on 409 Royal Street in New Orleans. But she, you know, she seemed really happy now. You know, this guy, he seemed to treat her well, and so they had 4 children together. And I do know that at least 2 of them were daughters. And she really just seemed to be like in her happy place. She seemed like she wanted to just live out her life with him, which she, you know, that's normally why you enter into a marriage, is to live your life out with someone. That's why in the actual, you know, ceremony is till death parts us, or to death do us part, and things like that. And so she was genuinely all in. She had the 4 kids, the happy house, the husband she loved, or at least in any of these instances, there's nowhere that it says she didn't love her husbands. So it just happens that they had a lot of money on top of it. Like, they were super loaded. But she had 4 kids with him, and she was really, really happy. But her happiness was short-lived, because in 1816, her husband got very ill and ended up passing away only 8 years after they got married. So now she is a widow and has 4 children. For the eyes today, we're going to be using ColourPop's Lust to Dusk palette. It's very lovely. So she genuinely must have at least loved him, Jean Blanc, because it took her quite some time to remarry. And when she did remarry, she ended up marrying a gentleman in 1825 called Dr. Leonard LaLaurie. And that's where we get the last name that she is most notable for, Madame Delphine LaLaurie. That is what she's most known or notorious for being called. By now, she's 34 years old. She's got 4 kids. They're getting older. The kids are probably, maybe some of them are grown or old enough to be married on their own. But so she's 34. It was said that the doctor was much younger than her. She was really happy with him, and she ended up purchasing some land in New Orleans herself. So if we thought that she was a gold digger, well, we might as well just drop that, because she was taking care of herself just fine. And she did come from money herself. So it's not like she just was really, really didn't have a lot of money at all, or any money, and then she ended up marrying in succession until she became very wealthy. No, she already had money of her own, so she ended up marrying this doctor, and she ended up purchasing her own land at 1140 Royal Street. She also organized the development of a 3-story mansion on that property. And she ended up setting up her husband there and 2 of her 4 children who did happen to be daughters. That's why I said we do know that she did have at least 2 daughters. She even had it set to where there were slave quarters attached to the house, or even in the house per se. This was not an uncommon practice of owning slaves back then. And if this is offensive to you, I'm sorry. This is a part of LaLaurie's story. That's why I gave the disclaimer before. Now, this was supposedly a really nice area, like in the hub of New Orleans. And this house was right there, this mansion, and they were able to just kind of come and go. And she made sure that her family was taken care of. Now, between 1831 and 1834, there is mixed reviews on how she treated her slaves. There was a woman by the name of Harriet Martineau that lived around that time and also ended up writing a lot about Delphine. But she would state that the slaves looked haggard, starved, not well kept, even like so far as to say they looked just wretched. While other people talked about how Delphine always seemed to respect her slaves, how they were well taken care of, including she made sure they had health care and just were good functioning people for her household. And so with the mixed reviews, no one would really jump in on this right off the bat and have real concerns if she was abusing them. The court records even stated that she released and gave full freedom to 2 of her slaves. So she really had this mixed reputation. So as Miss Martineau continued to talk, of course, it did eventually get the ear of a lawyer who went out to investigate any cause for these rumors. If someone keeps talking, people are going to eventually kind of try to check out what's going on with these rumors. And he did come and check it out, but he really couldn't find anything that would support these rumors that Miss Martineau was speaking on. And she was speaking on it, and she lived in this area, so she just was trying to spread awareness. But they basically didn't discover anything that would support this. She gave an account of a 12-year-old slave young lady who was brushing Miss Delphine's hair, and she came across a knot, and it really, she hit a snag, when you're brushing hair and sometimes it's knotty, and then you're like, oh, I hit that knot, right? And maybe her head jerked back or something like that. Well, it pissed off Miss Delphine. She was livid from what Miss Martineau said. And she supposedly chased this young lady, grabbed her whip, and chased this young lady through the mansion all the way up to the roof. And because there are multiple varying ideas of what happened at this point in time, but she was so terrified of being punished by Miss Delphine that she leapt to her death from the rooftop. Now, some people have said she was pushed, she tripped and fell, and some people say she leapt. Just was like, I'm done. I'm not going to get punished by this lady. I can definitely say that for me, I would probably have leapt too, because I wouldn't even be trying to catch a whip. When you hear about the whippings and things, and you see the pictures of the flayed backs and things like that healed, That's not something to play with. For our primer, we're going to be using Perfect Primer by EVO Beauty. This is the first time I'm using this. So I don't know if which one is true, if she leapt or if she was pushed or she tripped, but this stuff smells good. But I personally, it's really whatever you believe. I kind of think maybe she was pushed, but it's also plausible for her to have just run so fast that she leapt or even tripped to her death to avoid the punishment. To think of this woman being so terrifying that this sweet little 12-year-old young lady decided to take her own life, if that was the case, if she did jump, would have been caused right there to think like, hey, this woman is probably not all she's cracked up to be. Get what I'm saying? Like there must be some truth to whatever rumors Miss Martner is saying or whatever that's being passed around. I'm going to take a little bit of Elf's Poreless Putty Primer and just put it like right around here to make sure we cover up some things, a little extra. There are also two more rumors following this particular death. One, that the young lady was buried on the property of the house where she passed away. And then there's also a rumor that LaLaurie just pushed her into the well because she couldn't be bothered with disposal. You can believe whichever one you want. Those are the two rumors that circulated it, and there's no real proof of either. When learning about this, I did stop and wonder about if she was tossed into the well. Was this a drinking water well? Was this a well for bathing? What type of well was this? Because you would have a well on your property for drinking and bathing and everything like that. And if you're having someone tossed into it, it taints the water. So, I don't know. That was just a thought of mine. I don't know if that ran through your head when I said that, but that ran through my head when I was researching this. I'm going to use Do You by Too Faced, the foundation. Now, I really do love this. With this murder, with this particular death, it did raise more eyebrows in the direction of Miss LaLaurie. And so another investigator came out, and because of the fact that this was more proven, that, I guess there were witnesses and things like that, that Miss Delphine was forced to forfeit 9 of her slaves. Now, I don't really know how many she owned, but adding up these things, she must have owned quite a few. And so she had to, upon forfeiting them, she needed to, because it cost money to pay this fee that she had to pay because of this rumor and this death. So she was really starting to get into the public eye, and not for the normal reasons that she would normally get into it, like for lavish parties and things like that. Like the secret, all the fancy stuff that all the well-to-do people were privy to. This is not the type of attention that Delphine really was into. Now, even though she was forced to forfeit, 9 of her slaves, those slaves were just basically bought by family members, because remember, she came from a prominent family. And then they were returned to Delphine. I should have put a hair thing on. They were returned to Delphine ultimately to work on her house and in that household anyways. So it was just one big loop of No reason. It just ended up going right back. They just ended up going right back where they came from. It just seems like she got worse from there. She didn't learn her lesson, so to speak. It's like all of her meanness started coming out more and more. She actually chained her elderly cook to the stove and just chained her to the stove. So it's like she ate, drank, slept right there next to the stove. I don't know about you, but if someone's chaining me to the stove and forcing me to cook all their meals and all this stuff, don't be surprised if something slipped up in your meal. And this is the Incognito Wet n Wild concealer. Yeah, don't be surprised if I up and just poison your behind because you've chained me and forced me to make your meals. I'm just saying. I'm gonna find a way. There's got to be some type of poison that was up in that kitchen, or she had friends. So, and not only did she have friends, but her friends were Delphine's own daughters. Delphine's own daughters saw the act of their mother chaining this sweet old woman to the stove, and they attempted to rescue her, free her. Because they were thinking, surely, this is my mom. We're gonna free this nice old lady, and my mom's not gonna do anything. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Oh no. Delphine wasn't having it, and because her daughters went against her own wishes, oh no, Delphine was pissed. She chased her own daughters around the house and brutally beat them because they dared defy her and dared to try to set one of her slaves free. She was pissed. Now, I'm pretty sure that this was a wake-up call for those young ladies because, they were thinking, Mama won't hurt us, so we're just gonna free this nice lady. Oh, no. Mama Delphine was like, you're not gonna mess with my life here. You're gonna listen, you're gonna sit there, and you're just gonna deal with this. So needless to say, those young ladies just stayed up out of things after this. They were scared of their own mom. Sad. But their mom was not a nice person. And usually with serial killers, there is a triggering type thing that happens to where they need to, they end up doing this, they were assaulted or something, or a parent died or something like this. Oh no. No. Delphine didn't have anything like that, any backstory like that. No. She was just mean. And it doesn't make any sense. I mean, she had this life of privilege. She had her parents who adored her. She had lost a couple of husbands, but it wasn't, you don't just go out and start being evil to people. And this gets worse. That's why I had to put a disclaimer in the beginning. This gets only worse. I don't do a whole lot of contour for you guys, so I'm going to use the NYX Wonder Stick today. It's got contour on one side and some highlight on the other. April 10th, 1834, a huge fire broke out. Okay? Huge fire. This was not like this little tiny itty bitty fire. This was an all-consuming fire, okay? So during this fire, naturally Miss Delphine was pissed off that this fire was going on. It is messing up her beautiful mansion, right? But also, she was pissed off because there were things in this house that she had been hiding and she didn't want everybody to see. So much so that as the flames were engulfing the house, bystanders were trying to come in and get into like the slave quarters to set these people free. But Delphine was like, no, I'm not giving you the keys to get into my slave quarters. I mean, if you were any decent person, you wouldn't want somebody to just die being burnt alive, right? I mean, that's like horrible. Well, the rumors had spread that if she, slaves would come in and then they'd be taken to the uppermost portion of the house, and then they were never seen again. They just disappeared. They didn't return back down to their regular quarters or to any of their normal chores. They were just gone. So when these people were trying to get into this house to save other people and save these innocent slaves, because they didn't deserve any of this, they were forced to just bust down doors. They were like, forget it, you're not going to help us, lady? Well, fine, we're just going to go ahead and just bust down your doors. Okay? House is on fire anyways. You don't want to save these people? We're going to bust down your doors. Deal with it. When they busted down these particular doors, what they saw had them completely horrified. From accounts, there were at least 7 slaves in there that were hung by their necks from the ceiling or against the wall, like things on the walls. Their limbs had obviously been stretched until they were torn and dangling, like dislocated type of thing. Even some of the flesh was torn from where they had just been stretched out so far. Your skin only stretches so far. You start stretching things, your ligaments come apart, your bones pop out of place. This must have been excruciating for these people. Some of them smelled just like death, like they had been hanging there, and either they were barely alive or they had passed on and been there for a while, as in like hanging there and being decomposed. As they stepped back from this, they realized that it wasn't just that. So as we're going on, these people are still realizing what's going on with this situation here. And they realized that as they continued to, people like the fire marshals and things like that started coming in and seeing these bodies. They had been so severely mutilated and brutalized. This is really graphic, okay, guys? So I gave a warning in the beginning. Some of them had their stomachs cut open, their intestines were hanging freely from their body, and what intestines weren't hanging freely from their bodies were wrapped around their waist. Like someone had actually just wrapped it around their waist with no problem. It was said that one woman had been hung from the ceiling and had her mouth opened and feces placed into her mouth, and then her lips were sewn shut. Who thinks of this kind of stuff to do? I just don't understand why you would just randomly just do this to somebody. But sadly, this doesn't end here. Like, this is not just there's more. Again, that's why I did a disclaimer in the beginning, because this is not an easy one. Even I was like, did I just read that right? Was this something like that actually happened? Was this yeah, this was documented by the New Orleans Bead, was a newspaper back then. I'm going to go ahead and set down my face with the Fenty Pro Filter setting powder and butter. One man in this room had been suspended, again, like I had said, most of them were suspended from the walls or the roof. He had had his skull drilled into, and in that drill, in that drill hole, a wooden spoon had been placed to what they assume is to stir his brains. These things are just utterly horrific. It is also documented that she would break their bones, reset them in awkward ways so that they would heal and without being put back into place. Like she would like dislocate them and then make them heal poorly and crooked and things like that. One woman had so many of her limbs broken and repositioned into a terrible way that she was disfigured and had to walk like a crab. Others were coated in honey and then had black ants dumped on them. These were just, you stop and you think, what kind of person puts other people through this? This is just horrific. And I don't understand. Like, I wouldn't just go out and do that to somebody. She really, like, this woman was just messed up. Like, there was something wrong in her head. And you can't say that she was a psychopath, because psychopaths are supposed to, like, not feel that emotion and all that. Well, she was said to be, like, loved her kids, even though she beat the crap out of them when they tried to let one of her slaves free. And she was like a good mom and a good wife and all of this stuff. So unless she was faking all of those emotions, which psychopaths can, unless she was just faking all of that, then she was just straight up evil person. Like, this is beyond, you know? There are some people who had written books later on about this, like old ghost stories of New Orleans, and in which Jean Delavine actually said that some of the male slaves had their eyes gouged out and were skinned on their joints, like all your little joints, and their fingernails were ripped out. But this was not documented because they didn't have they don't know if this is true or if this is just kind of like the rumor mill going. Jean Delavine did say, however, that she got these from old newspaper clippings and things like that when she did her research, but that was about 100 years later, so it just came to play then. That's why people don't always believe that portion of it. But I mean, from what I have read and researched that is supposed to be real, I'm not putting anything past this woman. We're going to go ahead for blush and use Mrs. Bella by BH Cosmetics. It's some peachy tones. And like I said, there was no real basis on the claims for Mrs. Delavine. But like I said, I'm not putting anything past Delphine. Not Delavine, Delphine. Because all the horrific things that she had already done and that they were documented, I'm just not going to put anything past her. Well, oddly enough, the mansion had been rebuilt. And during the rebuild, supposedly multiple skeletons, tons of skeletons of what they believe were slaves of hers, were hidden and buried with no death certificate, no proper burial, just on the property underneath things hidden. Also, since I don't do a lot of contouring, this is double contouring. This is the light to medium palette by Sasha Beverly Hills. Bean that wrote that book also said that Miss LaLaurie had done medical experiments on her slaves, but they were not found to be proven, so it was just kind of speculation. people had remarked that she really had no reason to do medical experiments, therefore they could not really prove if this happened or not. But if you stop and you really think about this, did she have any reason to do any of the horrible things that she did? No, she just did them. So why are we trying to say, oh, well, okay, she didn't have a reason to do a medical experience, therefore we're just going to outlawed or outrule the fact that this might have happened or this person's documenting this particular thing. No. I'm not leaving anything out. Like, she could have done anything. Sources can be wrong. And for highlight, I'm going to use the Catrice Liquid Metal Eyeshadow. Yes, eyeshadows can be used as highlighters. So that's why they say that the woman that lived during those times, Mrs. Martiner, that she was more of a credible type witness, is because she lived during that time. And so it was more logical for her to be more accurate in what she was saying as opposed to what Delphine was. But Delphine did her research just like the rest of us. So maybe she uncovered some things that Martiner didn't know. I will tell you that, remember our little lady, our little elderly lady that was the cook that was chained to the stove? Well, she actually was found and saved. She said she started the fire, which was really smart. Remember how I said, like, if it was me, I'd be poisoning your food. I'm sorry, you're not chaining me to no stove and not getting the repercussions of whatever's going to happen. I'm not going to be bacon happy. I'm going to be trying to find a way to off your butt. But she said that she started the fire because she did not want to take any more of the cruelty from her, and she was actually trying to commit suicide, and she survived. You guys are all probably wondering, like, where's hubby at? Why isn't he stepping in on this and stuff like that? Well, people asked him. They're like, what's up with your wife? Why is she so crazy? Why is she doing all this stuff? His reply was simple. Mind your business. Yes, I said that. That's what he said. People should mind their business. When you're killing people, that's everybody's business. People need to know. You can't just up and kill people and be like, mind your business. Let me just handle my life over here. No, you can't do that. That makes him no better than what his wife did. I'm just saying. It's like he was some kind of accomplice. Naturally, people were trying to make excuses or find a reasoning behind this, because remember how I said that most serial killers or murderers have a reason behind the people that they kill. And why? Well, some people said, well, maybe she was just straight up racist, because we all know that there are people out there that are just straight up racist, and they do terrible things to whatever race that they're against, and they just do it because they hate that race for no reason. That person probably did nothing to them at all, and yet they're doing a horrible, taking their frustrations out on whatever race for whatever reason on people who don't deserve it, innocent people. They also said, there was also a rumor saying that she was like, this is the LA Girl Twist Up Cajole Eyeliner. I'm just gonna, oh gosh, this is so good. So they also said that she could possibly have been mad because some of the men in her family had mistresses that were slaves, and it's like she just did not want that to happen. And it was like even her father had a mistress, or multiple mistresses and lavish affairs. And these were women who were what they considered kept women. So these women were slaves, but they were made into mistresses. So then some of them had houses, and also some of them had children by their essentially their owners. They were taken better care of and made more into, like, they were given more things, like they were treated better and so on and so forth. Now this was not always the case, but this happened, okay? Really, people were just really always trying to figure out, why did Delphine do this? She really didn't have any reasoning to do this. So that people were, you know, nitpick whether you try to find a reason why. For our lashes, we're going to go ahead and curl our lashes, and we're going to use the Huda Beauty Legit Lashes. I like this one a lot. It's got double-sided lengthening and volumizing. Word is getting out about the mistreatment of the slaves. They have finally hit the public, and the public is outraged. This is like next level murdering. When the public found out about all of this, and when it finally, it finally hit mainstream public, they went and they absolutely trashed, stole everything from this mansion. Good. Destroy that place. It is documented that by the time the public was finished with this house, the walls were the only thing that were left standing. Everything else in the house was gone. The slaves were taken, and I'd like to tell you, like, hey, yay, they were taken and freed and they lived a happy, happy life. No. They were taken, they were confiscated, and they were brought to like a viewing place to where they could just be looked at and gawked at. You know, the slaves of Delphine LaLaurie. You know, it's like they were some kind of sideshow. It was as if they hadn't been through enough, right? Nope, they had to go and do all this. I mean, it's just horrible that they had to continue on living and living this way and being put back into, hopefully whoever got them either freed them or was kind to them. I would like to say that they were freed and they lived a long, happy life, like I said before, but obviously that didn't happen. For our lips today, we're going to use a little bit of Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk Liner, and we're going to use our Tatcha lip mask. I love these two combinations together. It's just really nice. So I would love to tell you that this story has an ending where she got caught and served penance for her wrongdoing. But if I told you that, I'd be a big fat liar. Again, I'll tell you of the rumors. The rumors are, there are multiple ones, so here we go. The rumors are that she fled to Paris with her husband to escape any type of consequences of her murders and dastardly deeds. And that while in Paris, she was hunting and was killed by a wild boar. So the hunter became the hunted. Another rumor is that she lived a long life and ended up dying in 1849 in Paris. Like, some documents say that that's where she died. But in the 1930s, there was a very modest, even humble looking plaque. See why I love that? It looks so good. It's like such a perfect nude for me. Spritzy spritz of one of my favorites, Milani setting spray. So in the 1930s, there was that humble plaque that was found, and it did read, Madame LaLaurie, born Marie Delphine McCarthy, died in Paris, December 7th, 1842. So that's kind of conflicting, where it says 1842 where she died, and then other documents are saying that she died in Paris in 1849. Go with that how you want to go with that, but they don't know the cause of her death. It was not said that she died of old age. It wasn't said that she died of getting sick or whatever. Like I said, they have that rumor of the boar, but that's about where it ends. And as far as the building, it does still stand. The address is 1138 Royal Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. And it is, from what I have seen, it's a beautiful building, but it's got a very sad, gruesome backstory. That is the story of Madame Marie Delphine LaLaurie. And that was a lot of story and a lot of badness that happened. If you like my look, or if you enjoyed the video, found it interesting or intriguing or anything like that, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. As always, please be kind to each other. Take each other into consideration. Everybody's going through something. And thank you so much for watching. As always, have a wonderful day. See you next time.